Okay, yes, scholars. Today we discuss democracy and democratization. So, first of all, some words about the definition of democracy. So, there are many definitions of democracy available in books. Lipset uh, is one of the scholars who has defined democracy, and he defines democracy as a political system which provides regular constitutional ways to change government officials. This is Lipset's definition of democracy, a political system which provides regular constitutional ways to change government officials. The word democracy is actually used in many different ways. Sometimes these uses even contradict each other. It is interesting to look at how two sets of scholars defined democracy. Bernard Crick, and versus Dalton, Shin, and Zhao. Bernard Crick has published a book and a very brief introduction to democracy. So it's a very interesting book. And in this book, he talks about democracy in terms of institutions and procedures, freedom and liberties, social benefits. So these three things he attributes to democracy. On the other hand, if you see the table on slide 7, Dalton, Shin, and Zhao, they attribute democracy, these three things to democracy: ideal or doctrine. Democracy is an ideal, democracy is a doctrine. Behavior towards others, it is democracy. And democracy is also institutional and legal, legal arrangements, institutional and legal arrangements. So when we compare the two ways of defining democracy, Crick versus Dalton et al. All of you know et al.
यस
E,
सर।
huh?
मतलब ये वो रिसर्च में यूज होता है जो मतलब कि एक से ज्यादा अर्थर ने की हो ना, मतलब तीन से
Yes.
ज्यादा वो
Uh,
ये यूज होता
yes. When there are several authors of a book or a research paper, so in to avoid repetition or to avoid taking all the names, you mention the first author's name and then you say et al. It means and others, Dalton and others, et al. When we compare the two ways of defining democracy, there is only one common idea, that is institutions. In both sets, in this the table we have just discussed, on both sides, the institutions are common. In Western countries, liberalism created democracy, and in turn, democracy boosted liberalism. They feed each other. This is Fried Zakria's argument. This is Fried Zakria's argument that in Western countries, liberalism created democracy, and in turn, democracy boosted liberalism. They feed each other. Liberalism's main goal is to promote and protect the freedoms of the individual person. So, in fact, when there's a debate on democracy, liberal democracy is frequently talked about. Liberal democracy. So, we need to have some understanding of liberalism in order to understand liberal democracy. So, liberalism, it is from liberty, the freedom to do and choose the things which you like. That is liberty. So, liberalism's main goal is to promote and protect the freedoms of the individual person. Because of this, the idea of individualism is baked into liberalism and liberal democracy. So, individualism is very central. The concept of individualism is very central in the discourse of individualism and in the discourse on liberal democracy. So, individualism means the rights of individuals, the autonomy of an individual, autonomy. So, if parents make all the decisions for their sons and daughters, is it individual autonomy? No, it goes against the spirit of individual autonomy. The sons and daughters must be consulted. They must be convinced. Okay, and they must not be coerced. They must not be forced. This is individual autonomy. This is individualism. So, because of this, the idea of individualism is baked into liberalism and liberal democracy. Liberalism wants to set up institutions so that every person is allowed to grow and succeed in the way they want to. Well, Islam. Liberalism wants to set up institutions so that every person is allowed to grow and succeed in the way they want to. So, Shivka, should I share the slides with you?
Sir,
It's okay?
yes.
So, great thinkers like Mill, Tocqueville, and Madison all supported democracy. They supported it because they believed it would promote individual rights and liberties. Political liberalism and economic liberalism both are rooted in the idea of the individual first, individualism. The core idea is freedom. Hegel had a famous quote. Hegel said, "The entire history of the world is really just the story of the progress of the consciousness of freedom." So, the history itself is the history of freedom, Hegel said. Fight is another philosopher. Fight said that democracy truly represents the principle of liberty. Democracy truly represents the principle of individual liberty. Spinoza believed that a free man is someone who lives by what reason tells them is right. If a man is free, an individual is free, if if he chooses whatever his reason tells, whatever her reason tells, then he or she is free. But if he or she has to choose something else, then what the reason tells, the person is not free. This is a problem under authoritarian rule. Here, another thing I'm just thinking. Sometimes we do actions which are harmful for ourselves. Can you name any actions which we do ourselves but they are harmful for ourselves?
Drinking alcohol, social media,
Alcohol,
social media पे ज़्यादा time spend करना.
wasting time on social media. Yes.
Overeating that causes
Overeating. Yes.
Smoking.
Smoking. Okay. Our reason tells us that it is bad for ourselves. But even then, we do. According to this philosophy, are we free? Are we free individuals if we do these things?
No.
We are not free.
Sir, but a person who drinks alcohol for themselves, their reason might suggest that it's okay to drink alcohol.
I think the reason tells it's not okay, but they just suppress the reason. They overlook it, and they they give to the temporary desires, wishes. Okay, the temporary taste. So In fact, we ignore the urge of reason for a very momentary type of
Pleasure.
taste or pleasure. So, in that moment, in fact, we are slave to our bad desires. That is also a type of slavery. It goes against our sense of true sense of freedom. It goes against our true sense of freedom. So, slavery is not only that others coerce us, we also coerce ourselves when we harm ourselves. When we harm ourselves, it is also a slavery to our own desires. So, if we perfectly follow the dictates of reason, we will never harm ourselves. So, we are discussing. Spinoza believed that a free man is someone who lives by what reason tells them is right. This is a problem under authoritarian rule. Under authoritarian rule, which is not democratic, people have many restrictions. They may not act upon the dictates of reason all the time. When rulers are strict and controlling, when rulers are strict and they control the people, it is almost impossible to live by the guidance of reason. It is almost impossible to live by the guidance of reason. Now, defining the freedoms. Comparing four freedoms identified by Diamond, which Roosevelt highlighted in 1941, with four basic freedoms listed by AG, Alt, and Emery. So here's another table. In this, four freedoms are compared. On the one side, four freedoms discussed by Diamond, and these four freedoms are also highlighted by Roosevelt. You know who was Roosevelt?
Yes.
Yes.
Who was he?
American president.
Yes, Franklin D. Roosevelt. He was the American president. And on the other hand, in this table, there are four freedoms discussed by AG, Alt, and Emery. So Diamond talks about political liberties, participation rights, equal justice before law, equal rights for women. In the second column, AG, Alt, and Emery, they talk about freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of assembly, and freedom of petition. These are the basic freedoms in their view. The two lists of freedoms are actually quite different. The only link between them is the idea of freedom of petition in the second list, which is similar to equal justice before law in the first list. AG and his colleagues suggested that many other important freedoms depend on their list of four basic freedoms. So, in their view, these are the basic freedoms. These other freedoms include the freedom to choose your political leaders, the freedom to share ideas and information, the freedom for intellectual growth, and the freedom of religious expression. What makes a society free? Mill. Mill outlined the five core basic freedoms that every person should have. Number one, freedom of conscience. It means what you believe. Number two, freedom of expression. It refers to what you say. Number three, freedom of thought. It means what you think. And freedom to choose your own life plans. It means how you live your life. And finally, freedom to combine with others. It means the freedom to meet and form groups. Sharansky and Dermer answered a key question. Nathan Sharansky, He was Deputy Prime Minister of Israel. And Sharansky and Dermot, they have authored a book. It is a very good book. Its title is The Case for Democracy. So in this book, they raise a question: how do we know if a society is free? And they address this question. They said a society is free if people can express their opinions without being afraid of things like arrest, imprisonment, and physical harm. If people can express their opinions without being afraid of arrest, imprisonment, and physical harm. The role of a liberal government. Tocqueville, Alexis Tocqueville, he was a French philosopher. Alexis Tocqueville described the job of a liberal government. Its main purpose is to allow people to make their own choices in social, economic, and religious life. It is the job of a liberal government, according to Tocqueville. A liberal government allows people to make their choices in social, economic, and religious life. He explained that the true value of liberalism is not what the government does. The beauty of liberalism comes from what private people and organizations do under that government. These both sentences are linked. He explained that the true value of liberalism is not what the government does, rather, the beauty of liberalism comes from what private people and organizations do under that government. In our modern globalized world, the government's role is to number one, set up a supportive framework like clear rules. Number two, maintain and improve this framework. So, in our modern globalized world, these are the roles of governments. This framework should help private businesses and individuals thrive through their own initiative. The word democratization was first used by Bryce in 1888. So, some definitions of democratization. Democratization is the process of becoming a democracy. Democratization means introducing democratic principles or making a country more democratic. So, the main difference between democracy and democratization is democracy is a phenomenon. Democracy is a phenomenon or a system. Democratization is a process, just like modernity and modernization. Modernity is a phenomenon. Modernization is the process through which a society or an individual becomes modern. Similarly, democratization is a process through which democratic norms and values spread, or through which a political system becomes democratic or it becomes more democratic. It is called democratization. So, what characterizes democratization? In other words, what are the characteristics of modernization? Many experts have listed different sets of characteristics. Metrics for measuring democracy. Freedom House surveys countries every year. Anybody has seen Freedom House? Freedom House. It also publishes a famous journal. Its title is Journal of Democracy. It is a very famous journal, very influential. Freedom House. So, Freedom House surveys countries every year, and they put countries into three simple categories. The first category is free countries, the second category is partly free countries, and the third category is
No.
not free countries. So every year they publish a report. Freedom House. It is in America. Freedom House. It is an NGO, non-governmental organization. These categories show a country's level of democratization. To what extent a certain country has become a democracy. It categorizes, makes different categories. To measure this level, Freedom House looks at two main features: political rights and civil liberties. These are the two main criteria for ranking different countries on that scale. There's another index which ranks different countries. It is the Economist Intelligence Unit's Index of Democracy. What is this?
Famous newspaper.
The Economist is a famous newspaper. It is a British newspaper, I think.
Yes.
It has its intelligence unit index of democracy. They have prepared an index of democracy, and they also publish their own rankings of all countries on according to that ranking. Where do different countries stand in democracy? But their index includes five main variables. These are five variables: electoral process and pluralism, the functioning of the government, political culture, political participation, and civil liberties. Civil liberties. Notice that the last two variables, participation and civil liberties, match the two used by Freedom House. These two match them. Rousseau. Rousseau suggests the importance of participation. All of you know Rousseau?
Yes.
Jean-Jacques Rousseau. So he was also a French philosopher.
So he was Italian, Jean-Jacques Rousseau.
Italian. Rousseau was an Italian philosopher.
Yes.
Okay. Rousseau stressed the importance of participation. Democratic countries provide participation to the citizens. He believed that for a citizen to be truly free, they must have the right to participate. How do people participate in governance in democratic countries?
So they express their will through elections.
Okay, one.
Sir, basically sir वो
Yes.
inputs output model type of concept जैसे वो demands और अपने sort of various
Yes,
there is
yes. That can be taken the most important aspect of participation, voting. But there are many other ways to participate in the political process in the governance. For example, we can write letters or send emails, or we can meet the government officials and let them know what are our problems, issues at the societal level, at the national level, which could be addressed, or by writing into in newspapers or speaking on media, we can give our input, and the government officials may take our input serious, and they may make it part of the policy or the legislation. So this way also the citizens can also participate in governance. Secondly, since the citizens choose the representatives themselves through their vote, and those representatives act upon behalf of the citizens. So, whatever the elected representatives are doing, the consent of the people is considered to be included.
Yes.
The consent of the citizens. So, yesterday I asked the question to your junior class, new class. I asked them, is your consent included in passing the 27th Amendment?
No.
Yes, majority said no. But then I asked theoretically, do you understand your consent is included
No, not in this case.
in
Because
passing the 27th Amendment? So one or two students said yes. Then I asked them explain it. Then they explained, and they explained it well. So yes, theoretically, practically it may not be.
Yes, yes, yes.
Theoretically, our consent is included. Because we have delegated our authority to legislate to our elected representatives. Theoretically,
Yes.
ठीक है?
So then what about the minority who has lost the elections? Their consent is not there.
Yes, I think John Locke has written on it in detail. He said since the political process, the minority was also part of the political process,
Yes.
and before entering into the political process, the minority agrees upon this rule.
Okay.
The minority
Agree.
agrees upon this rule that the majority decision will be okay for all. So, although they lost the vote, but their consent is included.
Agree.
Okay, this is called political philosophy.
But sir, the important thing is that people are totally independent to think about any amendment.
Not totally.
But
No,
here we,
theoretically, maybe totally, but practically, nothing is absolute, nothing is total. Everything is relative. Everything is relative. I might have discussed these issues in the orientation, these points. Everything is relative. Nothing is perfect and nothing is absolute in this universe. Not only in Pakistan, in the whole of this universe. Nothing is permanent, nothing is absolute, nothing is perfect. Even the planets change their routes, their trajectories, and all systems change with time. And there is always a margin to improve. There are always more. Even the best democracy in the world still has some margin to improve it further. So no democracy in the world is perfect.
yes,
Okay, and no authoritarian regime is perfectly authoritarian. It can be both authoritarian even. Okay, so even if a dictator kills 10 million of people, still he is not a perfect dictator because he has not killed all the people. So nothing is absolute. No, okay, no, go ahead. What was your point?
sir, मैं ये कहना चाह रहा था कि देखिए अमेंडमेंट चले ठीक है या गवर्नमेंट ने जो भी सोचा जिनके कहने पर भी जो भी किया बट उस पर एक अच्छी डिबेट होनी चाहिए हमारी अपोजिशन ये डिबेट करने की और हमारे पास मेजॉरिटी और माइनॉरिटी का कंसेप्ट है गवर्नमेंट अपोजिशन होना
Okay.
तो ये चाहिए कि इंटेलेक्चुअल लोग उस पर डिस्कस करें असेंबलीज में अपनी तरफ से भी दूसरी तरफ से भी फिर वोटिंग हो और अलाउ हो
हाँ.
अपने लोगों को कि वो इस अमेंडमेंट के अगेंस्ट भी वोट कर सकते हैं बट यहाँ तो शो का नोटिस जारी कर दिया जाता है कि आप गवर्नमेंट सिटिंग गवर्नमेंट के साथ हैं और आपने अगेंस्ट वोट क्यों किया तो इस पे तो एक अच्छी सी डिबेट होनी चाहिए कि फिर ठीक है देखते हैं अगर मेजॉरिटी उसको
Okay, your point is taken. I think at the end we can discuss this in detail if you will have time and if you like. So it is an important question, important point. We can discuss it. I like discussing it. So let us first complete this topic. So we are discussing Rousseau. Rousseau believed that for a citizen to be truly free, they must have the right to participate. Tune identified a different rate of democratization. What is that?
Individual.
Individualization. Individualization, making an individual more autonomous, ensuring the individual rights and freedoms. It is called individualization. Huntington and Starr described democratization as a continuous process of change. These are two different scholars, Huntington and Starr. So, in their view, democratization is a continuous process of change. They said this process is regular and predictable. This process is predictable and it is regular. They also believe that once it starts, this process cannot be stopped. This process cannot be
So,
stopped. Let me remind you here Alexis de Tocqueville. Alexis de Tocqueville was a French aristocrat and a philosopher. He visited the United States of America in 1930s or 1830s? 1930s. 1930s, yes. And in 1930s, there were very few democracies in the world, you know,
yes.
very few democracies, maybe less than 10, 20. Less than 10 countries were democratic at that time. And he stayed over there for 2, 3 years, and he wrote a book in 2 volumes. Its title is Democracy in America. Democracy in America. It is a very good analysis of American democracy. And at a time when there were only few democratic countries in the world, Alexis Tocqueville wrote in that book that democracy is will of God. It is the divine will, and soon it will take over all over the world. The whole world will become democratic. He made a prediction. He said it is such a strong force, no other force can stop it. No other force can stop it. And you just imagine that right now, majority of the countries in the world, they are democratic. At least some sort type of elections, some sort of democracy exists. Around 150 countries, I think, they are democratic now. And these scholars, Huntington and Starr, they also said that this process is regular and predictable, and once it starts, once it starts, this process cannot be stopped. And this is what I believe about democracy in Pakistan. One day, Pakistan will become a strong, consolidated democracy. There will be no chances of direct authoritarian rule. One day it will. Van Hanen, another scholar of democracy, Van Hanen created an index of democratization. He based this index on two main things. Van Hanen thought these two factors were the most important parts of democratization. Lucian Pai, another scholar, believed democratization is more than just how much people participate. It is more than participation. Just participation is not enough. Hardin, another scholar, Hardin noted that theories of democracy used to focus on direct participation, like people voting on everything. Now, these theories mostly focus on representative government, electing officials to vote for us. Today, I didn't have much time, so my slides are not in order, Slides are haphazard. When and why change happens. Many experts also think that the timing and the order of events are important in democratization. Timing and order of the events are important in the democratic process. Rijai listed six key things that need to be in place for a country to democratize. He called these predictions. So Rajai says there are preconditions. He called these preconditions. So Rajai has discussed, explained six preconditions for democratization. These preconditions cover many areas of life, including physical things like geography, economic like money and wealth, religious life, social structures, political organization, and psychocultural values. Psychocultural values mean how people think and feel, their psyche and culture. Gladich and Ward found that democracy often happens after a social conflict. This conflict happens when no single group is strong enough to force its rules on everyone else. They explained that democratization often changes in a society. Free Zakaria suggested a timeline for change. Zakaria said that before they need to focus on needs to last Huntington's three waves. Huntington's book, The Three Waves, and 1980s. Variables were important. And number three, seeing economic growth and development. Huntington listed other important factors too. These factors included a strong business class, bourgeoisie. A strong business class is required for democratization. The growth of political competition. Political for democracy. If there are no competing parties, if parties are not allowed to compete, then there's no democracy. So if there's one party rule in a country, is it a democracy?
No.
Social groups that follow democratic authority structures. Social groups that follow democratic authority structures. They are also required for democratization. Having the value of respect for individual rights is also important. Value of respect for individual rights. These are the preconditions for democratization, for democracy. He also theorized that a major reason for the third wave of democratization was a shift in American policy. So it means America also assisted democratic process in foreign countries. In the mid 1970s, the United States, along with European countries, started strongly promoting democracy and human rights. Security and democratic process. Rudin, another scholar, added a focus on security to the preconditions list. He said that people can only become free when they first feel secure. He argued that democratization happened in Europe. Levitsky. Levitsky gave three specific conditions. The first condition, according to Levitsky, comparative elections are required to start a democratic process. Level plays that the governmental departments are. then it is not a level playing. Democratic governments, like what happened in Nepal, it is also required for Miles. Miles is another scholar. Miles explained the role of law. If a society lacks the rule of law, the democratization process cannot move forward or it cannot make any real progress. Global influence on democracy. It refers to the phenomena of democracy promotion or democracy assistance. Some governmental or non-governmental organizations, particularly in the advanced democracies, they assist democracy or they promote democracy in the countries. What time is it?
4-9.
Okay. Some social scientists warn that the Western approach to democracy in Asia is helpful only to a limited degree. Western approach to democracy in Asia is helpful, but only to a limited degree. However, Western influence seems very relevant when it comes to causing political change in Asian countries. So their role in political change is very relevant because they have influence. Western countries have influence in Asian countries. Gladich and Ward found that changes in a country's power structure and the democratization process are often affected by outside forces. Events happening in other countries and regions of the world can influence a given country's democratic process. I recall that, if you read newspapers, Trump is interfering in internal matters of Israel. Anybody knows this? It is an open secret. In Dawn newspaper, many times I have read. First, Trump pressurized the the Israeli Supreme Court to drop the corruption cases against Netanyahu. Publicly. Publicly, he said, Trump, not secretly. And 2, 3 days back, again, he asked the Israeli president to pardon Netanyahu. Publicly. The influence of Western powers in Asian countries. Okay, next, understanding external pressure. Levitsky and Way created the concepts of leverage and linkage to help us understand this influence. Western leverage means how vulnerable a country's government is to external pressure. It means leverage. Linkage to the West means how strong and numerous a country's connections are to the United States, the European Union, and Western led global institutions. These are linkages. They explain the level of Western leverage is determined by at least three factors. Number one, the country's physical size and its military and economic strength. In other words, how hard it is to pressure that country. Number two, if the West has other competing issues on its foreign policy agenda, if the country isn't the main focus. And number three, if the country's government can get political, economic, or military help from another major regional power. In other words, an alternative source of support. So if these three things affect, influence the leverage of Western countries in other countries, the powerful countries. So these are some of the basic, very basic things when we talk about, when we discuss democracy and democratization. So I hope it will help all of us understand very basic points about democracies, democratization, and democratic transition. In fact, democratic transition is also a dimension of democratization.
Yes.
Or it can be, maybe it is the same thing, democratic transition. No, no, I think it should not be taken at the, it must not be taken as the same thing. But the transition to democracy is a part of the democratization process, is a dimension of this. So, with this, we conclude